Marcus Ellis stood at the edge of the city park, a vast expanse that had witnessed both moments of peaceful reflection and fervent protests, which shook the very foundations of the community. The park, with its sun-drenched pathways winding beneath the gnarled branches of ancient trees, held the echoes of voices raised in unity and the haunting silence that often followed nights of despair and unrest. Each step he took along the familiar trails felt like retracing the footsteps of those who had walked before him, their spirit interwoven with the landscape as they sought justice and equality. As dawn broke over the modern American skyline, casting a warm golden light that illuminated the towering buildings like silent sentinels, Marcus, young, black, and unwavering in his conviction, could feel the weight of generations of struggle mingling with his fervor for change. The golden rays seemed to amplify the restless energy surrounding him, a stark contrast to the oppressive shadows of his reality. It was as if the very air crackled with the dreams of those who had come before him, their struggles and sacrifices merging with his aspirations, intertwining their stories within his heart. In that moment, the cacophony of the city, a blend of distant sirens, rustling leaves, and low murmurs of voices preparing for another day, mirrored the conflicting emotions filling his heart, a symphony resonating with both hope and despair. His pulse quickened as memories flooded his mind, recalling the stories his grandmother told him, tales laden with resilience and determination that shaped his identity and purpose. She spoke of marches and sit-ins where ordinary individuals became extraordinary change-makers, their courage on full display in the face of ingrained prejudice, the vivid images of people linking arms in solidarity, their chants echoing their longing for justice, stirred something deep within him. The whispered narratives of his ancestors, filled with sorrow's weight and the fire of hope, lingered in his mind, vivid reminders of a time when hope flickered like a candle in a storm, yet burned brightly enough to illuminate the path forward. Marcus inhaled deeply, feeling each breath infused with their legacy, igniting a fierce determination to forge a future where equality and justice were not mere dreams, but lived realities. Marcus could not ignore the harsh realities that thrummed through the veins of his neighborhood, remnants of police misconduct and systemic neglect that marred its beauty. The vibrant murals that once celebrated their heritage now stood as somber testaments to forgotten promises and unaddressed grievances. Despite this backdrop, he had grown up surrounded by a fierce community spirit. His family and neighbors wrapped their strength around him, forging bonds that transcended the struggles they faced. They taught him the invaluable lesson that silence was not an option, and that every quiet moment could be a lost opportunity for change. Each memory surged through him, a cacophony of laughter and tears, resilience and struggle, each becoming a thread in the tapestry of his upbringing, igniting a fire within his soul that blazed fiercely against the encroaching darkness of despair. With his heart pounding in rhythm to the melodies of personal pain and collective hope, Marcus stood ready to challenge the injustices that continued to cloud their futures. In that park, at dawn, he felt the stirring of change like the first hint of spring after winter, a promise dancing in the air. He resolved to be one of the voices that moved the mountains ahead, knowing that even the smallest ripple could create waves of transformation in the world around him. He took a deep breath and surveyed the faces gathered in the park, a melting pot of hope and determination. Each person bore their scars, evidence of battles fought and survived, yet together they radiated an energy that was both contagious and electric. They had come to share their stories, each tale a thread in the vast tapestry of their community, and to amplify their voices in a powerful chorus, united against the relentless tides of injustice that sought to drown them out. As Marcus gazed into the crowd, he recognized Jenkins, the elderly woman whose garden had become a sanctuary for countless youngsters like him. Her eyes sparkled with the wisdom of years spent nurturing not only her plants, but also a generation of dreamers, making her a living testament to the neighborhood's enduring spirit and resilience. Nearby, he spotted his childhood friend, Lena, standing tall with a paintbrush in one hand and her other hand raised in solidarity. Lena had transformed her pain into art, channeling her experiences into vibrant murals that told the stories many wished to forget. Stories that needed to be told if healing was to occur. Each stroke of her paintbrush was a declaration of strength and a reminder that their past did not define them. Rather, it fueled their fight for a brighter future. With a growing sense of purpose and an unshakable resolve, Marcus stepped forward, feeling the weight of history pressing upon him like a mantle. Yet buoyed by the strength of those around him, he raised his hand, catching the attention of the crowd, and began to speak, his voice steady and clear. Filled with the urgency of change, "This is our moment. We are the change we seek, together. We have the power to demand accountability, to reclaim our narrative, and to ensure that our children grow up in a world free from fear and prejudice. As the words left his mouth, a palpable energy surged through the crowd, and they erupted in agreement, a harmonious blend of voices rising together like a powerful anthem. The sound echoed through the trees, a proclamation of unity and resistance that resonated with the deep-rooted aspirations of their ancestors and the fervent hope for generations to come. As the morning sun beamed down, casting golden light upon their gathering, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope wash over him like a warm embrace. They were more than just a group of individuals. They were a collective force with a shared mission, fortified by the understanding that their fight transcended the borders of their neighborhood. It was a profound battle for dignity, respect, and equality that resonated throughout the city and far beyond. Plans were laid out on an invisible table, ideas exchanged like precious gifts, and dreams painted vividly on the expansive canvas of their imaginations, each stroke more vibrant than the last. They envisioned banners that would wave triumphantly over the streets like heralds of change, art installations that would inspire dialogue and reflection, and community programs that would uplift their youth, providing them with tools to break free from the cycle of despair that had long plagued their lives. As the day unfolded, groups naturally broke into smaller circles, like branches on a flourishing tree, each brainstorming initiatives that would empower their community in unique and meaningful ways. A colorful mural that would celebrate their rich heritage and history, inviting all who passed by to stop, reflect, and engage. Workshops designed to educate the youth about their rights, equipping them with knowledge and confidence to stand up for themselves. Dedicated initiatives aimed at challenging local governance, ensuring their voices were not just heard, but truly listened to. And collaborative efforts with organizations deeply committed to social justice, pooling resources and expertise to strengthen their cause. Each idea ignited another within the warm atmosphere, creating a dynamic exchange that fueled their collective passion and unwavering resolve to create a future where every child would not only know their worth, but also feel safe and valued, cherished by a community that believes in them wholeheartedly. When the sun began to dip low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the park, Marcus understood that this was just the beginning of something much larger than himself. It was more than a moment of unity among friends. It was a gathering of hearts and minds, ignited by a shared vision of justice and equality. The seeds of change had been sown, and he felt a profound connection to those standing beside him, their hearts beating in unison, a rhythm of hope resonating through the air. Together, they would transform their shared dreams into tangible realities, tackling each challenge with courage and solidarity, aware that the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles. As darkness embraced the horizon, a sense of optimism lingered in the air, a silent promise that they would not only fight fiercely for their present, but also illuminate the path for generations to come. Each voice raised in that twilight echoed resilience, a defiant response to the injustices that had long plagued their community. Growing up in a community where discrimination was woven into the very fabric of everyday life, Marcus learned early on that silence was not an option. It was a luxury that few could afford. His neighborhood had been scarred by police misconduct and neglect. Stories of brutality passed down like dark folklore, each tale a painful reminder of the systemic issues that plagued them. These were not just isolated incidents. They painted a picture of a community relentlessly fighting for visibility and basic human rights. But Marcus refused to let despair define him. He was not willing to let the darkness consume his spirit. Instead, he turned to activism, a beacon of hope amid the darkest nights, finding strength in his voice and in the voices of others who dared to speak out. He channeled his anger and frustration into a passionate pursuit of societal change, justice, and equality for all, becoming a rallying cry for his peers and a torchbearer for future generations. In every conversation held, every banner painted, and every policy contested, Marcus found not just a call to action, but a profound purpose fueling his journey toward a just world. The incident that ignited Marcus's journey as a civil rights activist was seared into his memory, a haunting reminder of society's pervasive injustice. It was one of those rainy evenings when the world felt heavy with despair and the streets glistened with reflections of streetlights, like so many shattered dreams. The air was thick with moisture, and the rhythmic patter of rain against the pavement created a melancholic soundtrack, amplifying the tension simmering beneath the surface. Marcus's close friend, Jamal, had been pulled over for what initially seemed like a routine traffic stop, a scenario all too familiar to many in their community. But what transpired was anything but ordinary. It felt as though the very fabric of their reality was being ripped apart. The encounter escalated swiftly, spiraling into a vicious display of overwhelming force, a brutal reality unfolding in front of witnesses who could only stand frozen, their hearts pounding in disbelief as they recorded the incident on their phones, painfully aware that digital evidence was all they could offer. The deafening sounds of sirens and shouted commands filled the air, drowning out the soothing rhythm of the rain and severing any semblance of peace that might have lingered. In that moment, as violence erupted and fear overrode reason, the community's collective heart shattered, leaving a deep wound that would take much more than time to heal. In the aftermath, as the rain washed away the remnants of chaos, Marcus realized that he could no longer remain a passive observer. It was time to rise and channel the anger and pain into a movement for justice lasting beyond the shadows of that fateful night. The injustice was laid bare for all to see. An unarmed black man left battered and broken by prejudiced authority, his dignity stripped away as he lay in a hospital bed. Fighting for his life, while the legal machinery ground on with alarming impunity, the stark contrast between the sanctity of life and the violence inflicted by those sworn to protect had never been so pronounced. It felt as though time had come to a standstill. Each tick of the clock was a reminder of the brutal reality that enveloped his community. Those hours felt like an eternity for Marcus, filling him with an urgency he had never known before. An urgency ignited by the stark images of injustice flashing through his mind like a haunting slideshow. As the pain and disbelief coursed through him, a vow crystallized in his mind and heart, sharpening his resolve like a sword being tempered in flames. His silence, once a reluctant acceptance of the status quo, was now replaced with a powerful roar, a proclamation to the world that he would not stand idly by and watch the erosion of humanity continue unchecked. He could no longer ignore the echoes of his mother's struggles, her quiet resilience serving as a vivid backdrop to his awakening. Each drop of anger that surged through him transformed into a resolve to fight relentlessly to dismantle the deep-rooted inequities that marred modern America. The essence of that raw moment of anger had become his catalyst, propelling him towards a righteous battle that transcended personal grief and wove its way into the fabric of a collective struggle for justice. He envisioned a movement that would not just highlight the pain, but offer a pathway to healing and transformation, where voices were amplified rather than silenced. And every act of brutality inspired not just outrage, but unwavering determination. For Marcus, the fight was not just political, it was intensely personal. Woven into the very fabric of his identity, memories of his mother's quiet resilience, her unwavering strength in the face of relentless racial prejudice, served as a constant source of inspiration and motivation. He could still hear her soothing voice, recounting stories of her own experiences navigating a society laden with discrimination. With every recollection, she transformed her struggles into lessons about perseverance and dignity, imparting wisdom that transcended generations. She had navigated the tides of oppression with grace, a steadfast warrior in a world that often sought to diminish her spirit, always instilling in him the belief that the journey toward equality would be fraught with challenges. She emphasized that each setback was not a surrender, but rather a stepping stone on the arduous path to victory. Those moments of sharing were not mere conversations. They were lifetimes of courage encapsulated in heartfelt tales, stories of community gatherings, peaceful protests, and the unfurling spirit of hope that coursed through the veins of their people. Inspired by her wisdom and her stories of struggle, Marcus took it upon himself to bridge the chasm between the visceral pain of his community and the elusive promise of a just society. He saw himself not only as a representative of his mother's fight, but as a vessel carrying forward the aspirations of those who had come before him, whose voices had been silenced, but whose dreams still flickered like a distant star, awaiting acknowledgement. Each step he took in activism was a tribute to his mother, a continuation of her fight that now encompassed the hopes and dreams of countless others seeking liberation. Marcus envisioned a future where echoes of injustice would be transformed into symphonies of equality, where his mother's legacy would not just inspire change, but ignite it. He became the voice rising from the ashes of despair, determined to cultivate resilience within his community, ensuring that the hard-won lessons of history would guide their march toward an inclusive and equitable world. In college, Marcus's academic pursuit in sociology unveiled layers of systemic issues that he had only glimpsed in his earlier life. As he immersed himself in his studies, he discovered a rich tapestry of knowledge that illuminated the pervasive struggles faced by marginalized communities. His professors, passionate and articulate, recounted the historic struggles of civil rights movements as they illuminated the sacrifices made by those who fought for justice, weaving together narratives of courage and resilience that had shaped the very fabric of American society. Each lecture became a powerful reminder of the blood, sweat, and tears shed by those who came before him. Activists, organizers, and everyday individuals who dared to dream of a better world. Tales of marches, sit-ins, and enduring resilience echoed in the halls of academia, creating an electric atmosphere where the past met the present. Yet, Marcus added a modern dimension to these lessons, a stark examination of the continuing erosion of justice in urban centers, where crime rates often masked socioeconomic despair, and served as a loud reminder of the systemic neglect that had plagued generation after generation. He explored the subtle yet pervasive manifestations of segregation in education that created intellectual silos, unequal access to resources, funding disparities, and a curriculum that often failed to reflect the diversity of the student body. Each statistic he encountered felt like a personal affront. Fueling his desire to advocate for change, he also confronted the chilling realities of unchecked policing that disproportionately affected marginalized communities, underscoring how fear and oppression often stifled the voices of the very people demanding equity. Armed with this knowledge, he carried these lessons like armor, defining his mission and preparing him to meet the world head-on. The urgency was palpable. There was no longer any room for complacency in the face of such enduring injustice. If society were to change, then every voice, especially those silenced by prejudice, neglect, and systemic inequality, needed to be amplified and heard, resonating not just within the confines of the classroom, but echoing through the streets, in community forums, and within the halls of power. Marcus understood that true activism required not just awareness, but action, a determination to harness the collective power of the disenfranchised, to dismantle the old structures and build a more inclusive future. Motivated by this profound conviction, Marcus began to gather a diverse group of like-minded peers, individuals who, regardless of their race or background, recognized the deep-seated injustice that permeated society. His circle quickly transformed into a vibrant tapestry of perspectives, each thread representing a unique backdrop and experience. Among them were passionate Latino community organizers who brought forth the rich narratives of social equity and grassroots advocacy. White students who, grappling with their own feelings of guilt and privilege, were determined to use their voices as tools for change rather than instruments of silence. And seasoned African-American activists, whose resilient histories of facing adversity provided guidance and strength to the emerging movement. Together, they forged an unbreakable coalition of solidarity, approaching their mission with a multifaceted strategy that included organizing study groups that delved into essential texts on social justice, conducting community forums designed to foster open dialogue and understanding among diverse groups, and staging peaceful protests aimed at holding law enforcement accountable for their actions. In each meeting, Marcus was not merely a facilitator. He emerged as a beacon of hope and inspiration. His impassioned declarations resonated strongly within the room, as he reminded everyone, "Our fight is bigger than any individual. It is about reclaiming our shared humanity." These words quickly transcended mere rhetoric, evolving into a powerful mantra that reverberated throughout their gatherings, serving as a poignant reminder of their interconnected struggle for justice. As they meticulously laid the groundwork for their activism, driven by a shared vision, they evolved from a disparate collection of individuals into a cohesive community, united by a fervent aspiration for a future where justice and empathy would not just be ideals, but lived realities. Each step forward became a testament to their unwavering commitment, illustrating how collective determination could sow the seeds of transformative change in a society yearning for equity and understanding. The movement soon took on a tangible form, breathing life into a struggle that had for too long simmered beneath the surface of societal complacency. With a steadfast vision, Marcus spearheaded community protests against police brutality, becoming a beacon of hope for thousands from neighborhoods that had once been resigned to marginalization and isolation. Each gathering became not just a demonstration, but a vibrant celebration of resilience. The air buzzed with a palpable sense of purpose. As people converged from all walks of life, their united voices transformed into a powerful chorus singing for justice, echoing the calls for dignity that had long been stifled. And the streets transformed into vibrant sites of rebellion, alive with energy and determination, where hastily drawn placards proclaiming, Defund the police stood shoulder to shoulder with fervent demands for justice now. Chants for dignity echoed against the cold facades of government buildings, resonating through the heart of a city that had long ignored their cries, as though the very walls themselves began to tremble under the weight of their discontent. On one particularly striking autumn afternoon, as the leaves turned a fiery red, a poignant symbol of both bloodshed and renewal, Marcus led a massive march through downtown Detroit, a city steeped in history and resilience. The ochre and scarlet foliage cascaded down like silent witnesses to the tsunami of passionate humanity that surged forward in the streets. On that day, he bore witness to both remarkable solidarity and unexpected hostility, a microcosm of the larger societal shift unfolding around them. The energy of the crowd was infectious, filling the air with a purpose, as waves of supporters chanted slogans like Black Lives Matter and Justice for Jamal, their voices rising like a crescendo that filled the fading afternoon light with urgency and resolve. All yet, amidst this collective resolve, they faced the stark reality of local law enforcement, whose presence loomed as a reminder of the turbulence simmering below the surface of this movement. Marcus stood tall in the middle of the crowd, his passion illuminating the way forward, a beacon of hope and resistance amid the swirling chaos. His presence, a silent reminder that the oppressed were not ready to be silenced, intertwined their stories like the intricate patterns of a tapestry, each thread representing resilience, pain, and hope. The eyes of those assembled sparkled with determination, reflecting a profound readiness to reclaim their dignity and disrupt the narrative that had so long marginalized them. While some officers listened intently, perhaps caught off guard by the raw intensity of the moment, others barked orders, their rigid command contrasting sharply with the fluid vulnerability of the protesters. They dismissed the outpouring of emotion, insisting that such protests were but inciting division, seemingly blind to the reality that division had been ingrained as the status quo long before this day. The tension in the air was palpable, a thick, electric atmosphere mixing the incendiary energy of the protesters with the unyielding resolve of authority. This moment was a crucible, a defining point that would shape the future of their community's fight for justice, forging bonds of solidarity that would resonate far beyond the march and echo in the hearts of those who dared to hope for change. Among the police ranks was Officer Daniels, a veteran cop whose hardened exterior belied a deep-seated uncertainty about the new era of community policing. A shift he had watched unfold with a mix of skepticism and reluctant hope. The streets crackled with tension, and as he assessed the throngs of passionate protesters that surged forward, an internal battle waged within him. He longed to uphold the law, yet he felt an unsettling connection to the stories of those standing up for their rights. At a critical juncture, when a handful of protesters were blocked from passing a city intersection, Officer Daniels stepped forward. His eyes, weathered yet perceptive, met Marcus's, and in that intense gaze was a flicker of understanding, a recognition of shared humanity amid the chaos. "I've seen too many lives ruined on both sides," Daniels murmured to a subordinate, the confession escaping him like a whisper of hope in a storm. This small concession hinted at the growing empathy that Marcus's unwavering spirit had stirred within him, pushing the boundaries of his ingrained views on law enforcement and community engagement. Even so, moments later, a scuffle erupted, shattering the momentary connection they had forged. The protest, though largely peaceful, was tinged with the inevitable conflict born from years of pent-up frustration, a reflection of America's ongoing struggle between entrenched power and the relentless demand for accountability. In those chaotic seconds, sirens blared, voices escalated, and the palpable energy shifted. It was as if the very air itself was dividing them into adversaries. Contrary to the unity Marcus had hoped to inspire, the confrontation left Marcus physically unscathed, but emotionally bruised, the adrenaline pulsing through him not just from the clash, but from the weight of a history that felt omnipresent. As he knelt amidst a sea of ordinary citizens, all calling fervently for reform, he saw the faces of those who'd endured systemic injustices much worse than a minor altercation, each expression etched with stories of resilience and sorrow. The protest became a transformative mirror, reflecting the myriad ways in which discrimination manifested in daily life, starkly visible in the visceral reactions to their plight, be it overt violence at the hands of the authorities or the subtler, insidious practices of biased institutions that lingered like a shadow, undermining their every effort to be recognized, validated, and heard. In the aftermath of the protests, Marcus embarked on a journey across various American cities, driven by a profound commitment to amplify the stories of his community. His travels took him to schools where he observed Black children enduring an unspoken expectation to prove their worthiness, often needing to exceed not just academic standards, but also the entrenched prejudices that question their capabilities. He visited bustling employment offices, where he witnessed firsthand the chilling reality that resumes bearing ethnic names were frequently met with skepticism and dismissive attitudes from recruiters. Behind glass office doors, he sensed the weight of history, where countless qualified individuals were systematically overlooked. The stark difference between the resumes of equally qualified candidates painted a vivid picture of a biased landscape steering dreams away from those who dared to challenge the status quo. At each juncture of his journey, Marcus found an urgency to document the poignant testimonials and personal narratives that breathed life into the abstract concepts of everyday discrimination. The oral histories he collected painted a vibrant mosaic, showcasing the unique yet universal struggles faced by so many in his community, weaving a tapestry of resilience amidst adversity. During one visit to a community center in Atlanta, amid the warmth of an engaged audience, Marcus met Lorraine, a dynamic woman in her mid-40s. As she spoke, her voice was laced with a mix of frustration and determination, sharing her arduous climb up the corporate ladder. "They told me I wasn't a good fit for the management position, even though I had the credentials," she confided, her eyes reflecting both defiance and sorrow. "They said my accent and my background didn't belong in a boardroom." Her story struck a chord deep within Marcus, serving as a striking reminder of the structural bias that infiltrated every interaction. No matter how mundane, Lorraine's experience was not just an individual battle. It echoed the narratives of countless others, balancing on the tightrope of society's expectations, showing how the barriers to success were often immovable, mountains disguised as everyday obstacles. Her words lingered in Marcus's mind, compelling him to think about the critical need for systemic change and the power of storytelling in paving the path to a more equitable future. Marcus also met people who had faced discrimination in public spaces, their stories echoing painfully in his mind. In a small Midwestern town, an elderly Black man named Robert regaled him with tales of his experiences, tales steeped in a hard truth that spoke of years spent navigating a world that seemed intent on viewing him through a tainted lens. "I should be treated as a respected member of my community," Robert recounted with a low tremor in his voice. "But time and again, I find myself followed and harassed by store security, as if my very presence in the aisles is a suspicion of theft rather than an act of normalcy." Marcus could see the weariness etched into Robert's features, lines of frustration interwoven with a dignity that refused to be diminished. "Every day, I had to prove that I was just here to buy bread and live in peace," he added softly, his eyes glistening with the weight of countless indignities. This was not just one man's story, but a haunting reality shared by many, painting a grim portrait of modern America, a nation that prided itself on liberty while perpetuating injustice in quiet corners. The stark contrast left Marcus grappling with a deep sense of responsibility. The narratives he collected were echoes of lives lived on the margins, stories that begged to be told. These narratives fueled Marcus's resolve in a way that transcended numbers and statistics. They became vessels of truth, intricately woven accounts of human suffering and resilience that he could not ignore. Each individual he interviewed, every encounter filled with raw emotion, and every silent tear shared in moments of vulnerability represented another injustice that needed urgent attention. He meticulously documented these events, recognizing that they formed a complex tapestry of oppression that society often overlooked. His writing was not merely documentation. It was a clarion call for empathy, a reminder that behind every statistic lay a human life marked by constant struggle, and a clarion call for change. He understood that his narrative would serve not just as witness to the myriad forms of injustice, but as a beacon urging others to join in the fight for a more equitable society. Amid the fervor of public activism, Marcus grappled with personal doubts and internal conflicts that threatened to undermine his mission. The constant barrage of criticism, from opponents of his movement who painted him as a rabble-rouser, to skeptics within his own community who doubted the efficacy of resistance, weighed heavily on him. There were moments when he found himself questioning whether one person could truly make a difference in a system built on centuries of entrenched injustice. Yet, rather than succumbing to despair, he found solace in the stories he documented. Each setback only solidified his commitment to fight on, reminding him that the journey toward justice is often a marathon, not a sprint. In the face of adversity, Marcus determined to carry forward the voices of those often silenced, believing that even the smallest acts of rebellion could ignite a spark of change. One particularly challenging day found Marcus in the solitude of his modest apartment, surrounded by stacks of protest flyers and handwritten letters from supporters and detractors. Each piece of paper seemed to echo the tumult of the outside world, a stark reminder of the battles both won and lost. The air was heavy with the lingering scent of cold coffee and sleepless nights, permeated by haunted recollections of brutal police encounters that he or his friends had suffered, moments that replayed like a relentless loop in his mind. The echoes of laughter from childhood had long since faded, replaced by the harsh reality of resilience forged in the flames of adversity. It was during these quiet moments of introspection that he often felt the weight of generations upon him, and he could almost hear the whispers of his ancestors weaving through the silence, urging him to rise despite the overwhelming odds stacked against him. In one phone call, Marcus's sister reminded him of their childhood together, playing in the dusty streets of their neighborhood, the sounds of joy contrasting sharply with the oppressive atmosphere of their current struggles. They often spent those carefree days dreaming of a future free of discrimination, constructing castles in the air that now felt tantalizingly close, yet painfully out of reach. "Remember, Marcus," she urged, her voice steady with conviction. "Our history is written in every step you take toward justice. Each stride counts, even if the road seems endless." Her words became a mantra, small, powerful truths that resonated deeply within him, illuminating his path when the obstacles grew too formidable to ignore. Each conversation with her felt like a lifeline, anchoring him in a sea of doubt and driving him to push forward against the currents of despair. Amid personal trials, he found comfort and camaraderie in the unwavering support of fellow activists who shared his struggles and hopes. His mentor, an elder statesman of community organizing named Linda, was a wellspring of wisdom and guidance. Linda had witnessed the evolution of civil rights from the days of sit-ins and boycotts to the digital age of viral campaigns and mass mobilizations, and her stories were both a balm and a beacon. "Marcus," she advised during one late-night strategy session, her eyes glinting with the fire of experience, "remember that social change is a cumulative effort. Every protest, every conversation builds upon the last. Don't ever doubt your impact. It's the small ripples that can create waves, and you might never see the full scale of the change you're helping to usher in. But trust that it's happening." Her encouragement wrapped around him like a warm cloak, empowering him to face an uncertain future, knowing that he was part of a larger narrative, a story of resilience, hope, and transformative change. With renewed determination, Marcus immersed himself in the meticulous preparation for a major community demonstration that had been months in the making. This protest promised to be the largest yet, a critical opportunity to ignite a dialogue not only with law enforcement, but also with society at large, challenging the pervasive narratives that often silenced marginalized voices. It would be a courageous stand against systemic racism, an impassioned plea for accountability, and, most importantly, a vibrant celebration of the strength and resilience of a community determined to reclaim its dignity and agency. He envisioned a sea of faces from various backgrounds, united by a common cause, echoing the powerful history of civil rights struggles while blazing a trail toward the future. On the eve of this pivotal protest, Marcus's tireless efforts were richly rewarded by the enthusiastic willingness of various community figures to stand alongside him in solidarity. Among them was Reverend James, a revered spiritual leader deeply rooted in the community, who had spent decades nurturing a congregation that championed love, justice, and communal responsibility. Revered for his wisdom and compassion, Reverend James organized prayer vigils and facilitated citywide discussions, tirelessly urging citizens to transcend the divides of race and socioeconomic status. He inspired everyone to embrace a unified vision of America, one where justice was not just a lofty ideal but a tangible reality for all. "We stand not as separate, isolated entities, but as interconnected souls seeking justice," Reverend James proclaimed during a powerful community gathering held in the heart of the neighborhood. His voice resonated deeply with Marcus, filling him with hope and reinforcing the belief that his mission was not just politically necessary, but divinely inspired and morally imperative. As he listened, Marcus felt the collective energy of the crowd swell around him, an electric pulse of determination that reminded him of the shared struggle and aspirations that tied them all together. It was in those moments that Marcus understood the depth of their fight. It was not merely against oppression, but for the honor of every life affected by injustice. A testament to the enduring spirit of their community, and its commitment to harmony and equity. Another crucial ally was Kara, an African-American lawyer who had once been a quiet bystander in instances of injustice, choosing at times to retreat into the background rather than risk confrontation. However, the pivotal moment came when she witnessed a close friend suffer discrimination in a professional setting. This galvanized her resolve, igniting a fiery passion to speak out in courtrooms and living rooms alike, where the voices of many were often hushed. Kara's legal expertise became invaluable to Marcus's team. Her sharp intellect and unwavering commitment to justice not only provided substantial legal backing, but inspired confidence in those around her. Though often facing subtle, yet insidious, prejudice herself, she steeled herself for battles that transcended the courtroom. A fight against institutional bias in every form, including the narratives that often went unchecked in society. Kara often reminded Marcus that legal reforms, though crucial, were merely one facet of the overall struggle. Organizing, mobilizing, and educating the masses is just as important as any court ruling, she argued fervently. To put this belief into action, they collaborated on a series of workshops aimed at demystifying community rights and self-advocacy. Their sessions were lively and inclusive, drawing participants from diverse backgrounds, ensuring that ordinary citizens understood their inherent power and the legal protections available to them. Each workshop was infused with Kara's passion, as she imbued hope and determination into every conversation, a spark that illuminated the darkest moments of their campaign. Through her dynamic storytelling and ability to connect emotionally, she transformed abstract legal concepts into relatable issues, making the law feel accessible rather than intimidating. Even among unexpected groups, there were allies who emerged as steadfast supporters of their cause. Marcus found that many young white activists, motivated by a newfound awareness of social justice issues, triggered by the alarming disparities they witnessed in news coverage, were also working tirelessly for reform. These allies formed a supportive network, eager to engage in difficult conversations about privilege, where they listened intently to personal accounts of discrimination and actively challenged their own biases. Throughout this journey, they fostered spaces for dialogue that celebrated both solidarity and accountability. Despite the inherent differences in their experiences, a mutual commitment emerged: the pursuit of a society where justice, respect, and empathy were the norm. This diverse coalition, composed of individuals from various backgrounds, became a powerful testament to the strength found in unity and shared purpose, further bolstering the momentum of Marcus's mission. However, Marcus's journey was not without opposition. At every turn, he encountered resistance from those who defended the status quo, entrenched in their beliefs and fearful of change. In boardrooms where policies were drafted and redrafted, Marcus was often met with voices that dismissed his concerns as emotional rhetoric, branding his passionate appeals for equity as inadequate and naive. These meetings, filled with mass disdain and condescension, were battlegrounds where innovation clashed with tradition, and the very fabric of community trust seemed at stake. In small towns and suburban neighborhoods, he faced not only skepticism, but also overt hostility from individuals who feared that the avenues he pursued would unravel cherished traditions, upending their familiar world in a way they could not comprehend. During one particularly heated city council meeting in a suburban district, an older gentleman named Mr. Harrison stood up, his face flushed with indignation as he vociferously denounced Marcus's proposals for increased oversight of police practices. "You can't just recreate our society on a whim," Mr. Harrison argued, his tone defensive and bitter, echoing decades of cultural norms that many in attendance clung to fiercely. "Law and order have kept this country safe for generations." He spoke as if the very essence of security relied solely upon adherence to outdated policies. Dismissing the nuanced cries for justice sprouting from the community he feared was slipping away, Marcus responded with a quiet dignity, an air of resilience surrounding him as he recounted poignant stories of long-forgotten injustices interwoven into the very fabric of American history. His calm, steady voice served as a counterpoint to the frantic alarm of his detractors, challenging the deep-seated prejudices and exposing the systemic inequities that favored a privileged few over a marginalized majority. "Our society is built on the contributions of countless individuals who were once deemed unworthy," he articulated, his words a deliberate bridge designed to connect past struggles with present realities. "And it is our responsibility to ensure that no one is left at the fringes of accountability." His statement resounded in the room, a powerful reminder that true progress often requires facing discomfort, questioning the familiar, and embracing a broader vision of community, one that is inclusive and just for all its members. Even among the police, as illustrated by the struggles faced by Officer Daniels, There were profound moments of internal conflict that echoed throughout the ranks. Some officers, when confronted with damning evidence of misconduct and the raw pain reflected in the eyes of their community members, began to reevaluate the policies they had been compelled to enforce without question. The stark reality of these encounters exposed the cracks in their worldview, forcing them to grapple with the ethical dilemmas of their roles. Yet, these internal doubts often remained unvoiced within the hierarchy of entrenched systems and rigid protocols, where conformity was prized over conscience, leaving many officers feeling isolated in their uncertainty. Marcus's unwavering willingness to engage compassionately, even with those who appeared to be on the opposing side, eventually created small openings for dialogue that were previously thought impossible. In one poignant instance, after a particularly heated protest that had left the air thick with tension and uncertainty, Marcus found himself in an unexpected, quiet conversation with a young officer named Elena, with her uniform barely suppressing the turmoil she felt inside. Elena lowered her voice as if afraid the weight of her words might breach the walls of their conflicting duties. She confessed that she felt torn between her unwavering duty to uphold the law and a deep-seated moral imperative to treat every citizen with dignity. Recognizing the humanity behind the badge and the anger of the community, I know my actions can be wrong sometimes, but I'm scared to speak out. Scared of what it might cost me, she admitted, her eyes reflecting a vulnerability that resonated with Marcus. In response, Marcus spoke with a gentle yet resolute conviction. You have the power to change the system from within. Elena, remember, it only takes one voice to start a new conversation. Every act of courage can inspire another. Though their conversation was brief, it planted a seed of introspection in Elena, a poignant reminder that even those deeply embedded within structures of oppression could embody the potential for transformation. This exchange not only illuminated her internal struggle, but also hinted at the possibility of allyship rising from unexpected places, feeding the larger narrative of change that Marcus envisioned for their shared community. The culmination of these experiences led to a pivotal turning point in Marcus's journey, a moment where the weight of his past collided with the possibilities of the future. The nationwide protests had reached a fever pitch, fueled by a collective demand for justice and equality that resonated across all segments of society. Across America, Black, white, Latino, Asian, people were uniting under the resonant banner of reform, their voices harmonizing in a powerful chorus of change that reverberated in every corner of the nation. In this charged atmosphere, Marcus took it upon himself to organize what became known as the City of Voices Rally, a massive demonstration designed to amplify the collective cries for justice and bring together thousands from all walks of life. With meticulous planning, he envisioned not just a protest, but a celebration of unity and diversity, an event that would showcase the strength inherent in community solidarity. The rally unfolded in the heart of a bustling urban center, where streets were lined with colorful banners, each symbolizing a story, a struggle, and a dream. Groups of protesters, representing a mosaic of cultures and backgrounds, filled the avenues, their voices merging into an intoxicating symphony of hope and determination. The air was alive with vibrant music, pulsing beats that resonated with the rhythm of progress, and the infectious energy of anticipation surged through the crowd. At the center of it all stood Marcus, a beacon of inspiration before a roaring crowd, his presence electrifying the atmosphere. As he looked out at the sea of faces illuminated by the afternoon sun, he felt an unbreakable bond forming in that moment of unity. His speech was not only a recapitulation of the collective grievances that had simmered for far too long, but also a heartfelt call for understanding and reconciliation among all individuals, regardless of their background or beliefs. We are not enemies, Marcus declared, his voice resonating with passion and clarity, each word imbued with the urgency of the moment. Oppression has divided us for far too long, fueling a cycle of mistrust and fear. But when we come together as one, our voices become unstoppable forces for change. Today, we stand not solely for ourselves, but for every single person who has ever been silenced, every child whose dreams have been stifled by fear and discrimination. This is not just our fight. It is a struggle for humanity and dignity that transcends race and borders. Together, we can forge a future where our voices resonate in harmony instead of discord. As he spoke, the audience was moved, some to tears, others to clenched fists of determination. The collective energy was palpable, creating an electric atmosphere that rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Faces glistened with emotion. A mosaic of different backgrounds united under a common cause. The rally transcended a mere gathering. it became a powerful demonstration of solidarity, embodying the hopes and aspirations of countless individuals who had long been marginalized. Local media representatives rushed to capture the moment, their cameras flashing as national commentators weighed in, acknowledging a growing movement that was impossible to overlook. Politicians, community leaders, and even previously indifferent citizens found themselves forced to confront a reality too glaring to ignore. The protest was a definitive statement. America was no longer willing to accept an outdated notion of order that perpetuated inequality. It was a bold declaration that the status quo was not only being questioned, but actively challenged, signaling that the fight for justice and equality had ignited a flame that could not be extinguished. In the weeks following the City of Voices rally, the pressure on local governments was undeniable and resulted in preliminary policy discussions that began to pave the way for transformative change. Committees, once stagnant and slow to act, were suddenly formed to investigate alarming cases of police misconduct that had previously been swept under the rug. Local activists and citizens alike engaged with their representatives, demanding accountability and transparency. Several city councils, influenced by the overwhelming sentiments expressed at the rally, began to re-examine their funding priorities and had started to shift resources toward community initiatives. This included investment in mental health programs, youth outreach, and education, an emphatic departure from the previous trend of increased militarization of police forces, which had only exacerbated tensions in communities. Marcus, whose resolve had only strengthened in the wake of the rally, was invited to speak at various policy forums that were beginning to emerge as platforms for change. He recounted firsthand accounts of discrimination and injustice, detailing personal experiences and systemic issues that haunted communities across the nation. His discussions ranged from unfair hiring practices that stifled economic mobility to the pervasive issue of racial profiling and routine traffic stops that instilled fear rather than trust. In one notable hearing, he provided a gut-wrenching account of a young Black student who had been repeatedly harassed by school officials, despite her remarkable academic achievements. Her story, delivered with emotion that echoed throughout the room, reverberated in the hearts of those present, forcing policymakers to confront the insidious nature of institutional racism head-on. The silence that followed her testimony was heavy with reflection, a moment of reckoning that underscored the urgent need for comprehensive reform. Despite the progress that had been made in addressing systemic injustices, many challenges remained entrenched within the fabric of society. Some lawmakers, rooted in centuries-old ideologies, clung fiercely to their power, viewing any notion of change as a direct threat to their perceived control. Their resistance was not merely a matter of stubbornness. It was a reflection of a deeper fear, a fear of relinquishing authority and the privileges that came with it. In this tumultuous atmosphere, Marcus found solace and strength in the solidarity of grassroots organizations. These groups acted as beacons of hope, igniting his resolve with every small victory they achieved against the odds. Whether it was organizing community cleanups or advocating for critical funding for education in underserved neighborhoods, each triumph brought with it an invigorating energy that began to chip away at a system long deemed unassailable. As the months turned into a full year of sustained activism, Marcus realized that the battle for justice was not a sprint, but a marathon, one that required both resilience and compassion. There were moments when fatigue threatened to cloud his vision and when the gravity of the struggle seemed overwhelming. Yet, during quiet moments of introspection, he recalled his early days filled with rage and pain, entwined with the heavy burden of history that weighed on his spirit. However, instead of being shackled by this burden, those same moments transformed into a powerful message of healing and acceptance, a platform for his growth. He understood that vulnerability carried a unique strength, one encouraging others to share their stories, struggles, and ultimately, triumphs. At a vibrant community forum held in a renovated cultural center in his hometown, Marcus stepped onto the stage, ready to address an audience that spanned multiple generations and backgrounds. The room buzzed with anticipation, filled with young, hopeful activists eager to make their mark and seasoned community elders with a wealth of experiences to share. "I have been both the victim of injustice and an instrument of change," he said softly, his voice layered with emotion as his gaze swept over the diverse faces before him. "Our journey is layered with pain and struggle, but it is equally woven with the beauty of collective hope. We may come from different paths, but our destination is the same. A society that embraces truth, compassion, and equality. Let us celebrate our differences and understand that each one of us adds a unique thread to the tapestry of our shared humanity. Together, we can rewrite the narrative and create a future where justice is not just an aspiration, but a reality for all. In his closing remarks, Marcus emphasized the paramount importance of empathy in the struggle for justice. It isn't enough to simply protest. He insisted, his voice resonating with the weight of urgency and sincerity. We must listen to each other with open hearts and minds. We must strive to understand the myriad stories that have shaped our lives. Stories of tragedy, resilience, and triumph that define our collective experience. In our pursuit of justice, let us never forget that the foundation of true equality is built on understanding and love, not just law or legislation. His conviction was palpable, inspiring many in the room to feel the obligation of empathy as an active force for change, one that demanded engagement rather than passive agreement. His words reverberated far beyond the auditorium walls, echoing in the hearts of those who listened and engaging a wider audience across various social media platforms. Thousands of individuals began sharing their own narratives of discrimination and redemption, creating an intricate mosaic of voices united in a fervent commitment to reform. Each post was a testament to the human experience, showcasing raw emotions, reflections on loss, and glimmers of hope. Accompanying his speech, images flooded online. Pictures capturing poignant moments of genuine connection. A police officer kneeling and offering heartfelt apologies to a grieving community member. A council member fervently pledging to institute oversight committees to ensure accountability. And a young activist whose eyes sparkled with the promise of a brighter future. Her determination palpable as she envisioned a world where their dreams could materialize. Despite the monumental strides made, Marcus understood that the struggle for equality was far from over. It was an ongoing battle, demanding vigilance and fortitude. Each day brought fresh challenges, be it a new instance of prejudice, a setback in policy implementation, or a moment when division threatened to resurface and drown out the progress made. However, he also recognized that this relentless struggle was an integral part of the journey toward forging a more just society. Transformation, he knew, required more than just protest and policy change. It necessitated the continuous cultivation of understanding and acceptance among all people. The road ahead was long and fraught with obstacles, but Marcus remained steadfast in the belief that every act of empathy, every shared story, and every moment of connection was another step toward the elusive dream of equality. Marcus envisioned a future where neighborhoods were not merely defined by racial lines, but by the genuine bonds of community, woven together by shared experiences and mutual respect. He imagined schools that served as beacons of inclusivity, where every child was taught the rich tapestry of American history, both its moments of triumph and the deep sorrows of its past. In these classrooms, discussions about civil rights would transcend the boundaries of rote memorization, transforming into living lessons that informed actions and guided behavior in everyday life. He envisioned educators passionate about fostering critical thinking, encouraging students to engage with challenging topics, and inspiring them to become advocates for change in their own right. In the workplaces of his dreams, transparency and fairness would serve as the cornerstones of corporate culture, where hiring practices were scrutinized rigorously to eliminate the insidious shadow of unconscious bias. He believed that every employee, regardless of their background, would have equal access to opportunities for growth and advancement, creating a workforce that reflected the diversity of society itself. There, innovation would flourish, driven by a collaborative spirit that thrived on different perspectives, leading to more creative solutions and products that considered the needs of all people. Above all, in the hearts and minds of individuals across America, Marcus hoped a sense of shared responsibility and empathy would prevail. This new mindset would encourage people not only to stand in solidarity during times of struggle, but also to strive for a day-to-day practice of kindness and understanding. He dreamed of a society where listening became as vital as speaking, and where everyone actively worked to dismantle the barriers that divided them, not just in moments of crisis, but as part of an ongoing commitment to community and unity. In the final weeks of the campaign that followed the nationwide protests, Marcus and his team organized unity circles, small, intimate gatherings where citizens from diverse backgrounds could share their experiences in a safe, supportive environment. Here, people recounted tales of microaggressions in their daily routines, subtle comments at the coffee shop, dismissive attitudes in professional settings, and even well-meaning but misguided assumptions that reinforced harmful stereotypes. These circles became crucibles of transformation, spaces where vulnerability met resilience, enabling participants to confront their realities head-on. In one particularly impactful session, a local business owner shared his harrowing experience. He recounted how repeated assumptions about his competence, based solely on the color of his skin, had cost him vital contracts, which he realized were pivotal to his business's growth. As he spoke, his voice echoed with a mix of anger and sadness, illustrating the silent battles faced by many in similar positions. An employee, seated nearby, found the courage to share her story as well. She described the relentless pressure of having to prove herself worthy, an unyielding weight of judgment that accompanied her every application for promotion. Despite consistently outperforming her peers, her tears mirrored the frustration of countless others who felt their efforts diluted by the biases embedded in organizational cultures. Yet within those circles, a remarkable transformation began to unfold. What started as individual stories of despair gradually turned into a powerful collective narrative of empowerment. With every story shared, bridges were built, connections that transcended race, background, and experience. Participants began to realize that their struggles, while deeply personal, were not isolated incidents but rather part of a larger tapestry of shared challenges. This recognition ignited a sense of solidarity, fueling a determination to foster change together. Marcus reflected on these transformative gatherings as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for change. He marveled at how such simple acts of sharing could lead to profound revelations and a collective awakening. True progress, he believed, lay not in defeating opponents in debate, but in fostering an environment where even skeptics could be reached with compassion and understanding. The path to justice is paved with open hearts and willing ears, he would later write in his memoir, emphasizing the importance of dialogue over division. He urged readers to remember that in a world often divided by fear and ignorance, it was empathy that held the key to dismantling barriers. As autumn gave way to winter and the protests began to transform into sustained movements for systemic change, Marcus Ellis's journey became emblematic of a larger narrative emerging across the nation. His tireless fight against the oppressive machinery of bias and brutality was not merely a personal crusade. It was a clarion call for society to reimagine itself as a community where every individual's voice mattered, contributing to a course of change. This new vision imposed the question of what true unity should look like: an inclusive society that values diversity and advocates for equity at its core. Each rally, each gathering, became a testament to the idea that when people unite, fueled by shared experiences and hopes for a better future, they cultivate an environment ripe for transformative action and monumental change. In a final poignant public address held in a revitalized urban park, Marcus looked out over a congregation of thousands, faces illuminated under the soft glow of string lights that crisscrossed above, creating an atmosphere that was almost ethereal. The air was filled with the scent of food vendors and murmurs of hope as community members gathered, united by a common purpose and a shared vision for the future. "We have seen the cost of indifference," he said, his voice trembling with both resolve and vulnerability, echoing against the historical backdrop of the park, a space that had witnessed both joy and sorrow throughout its existence. "But tonight, I stand here with you, not merely as a symbol of protest, but as a living testament that together, we have the power to rebuild a nation where all of us are valued equally. It is only through understanding and acceptance that we can truly heal the wounds of our past." His words stirred an electrifying sense of unity that transcended political affiliations, generational divides, and racial lines. In that moment, it became clear that the movement was not just about demanding justice. It was about crafting a new narrative for America, one where empathy replaced enmity and dialogue thrived over discord. The message was straightforward. The future of America depended on its willingness to listen to all voices, no matter how painful or dissenting, and to embrace the rich tapestry of its diversity as the wellspring of strength and innovation. As he spoke, the crowd swayed in rhythm, echoing his sentiments, their collective heartbeat setting the pace for a brighter tomorrow. Marcus's journey continued, marked by the unwavering resilience of a people who would no longer allow injustice to define their futures. His story was a mosaic of heartache and hope, struggle and success, a narrative that interwove personal experiences with broader societal changes, reminding everyone that the fight for equality was ongoing and that every act of courage, no matter how small, lit the way for tomorrow's progress. With each passing day, he became not just a leader, but a beacon for those seeking to navigate the complex waters of social justice, illustrating that it was possible to rise from the shadows of oppression and harness collective power for transformative change. In the quiet after the storm of protests, as communities began to heal and dialogues flourished in the halls of government and home alike, A new chapter was written in the American narrative. It was a chapter where empathy replaced enmity, understanding bridged divides, and every citizen, regardless of background, pledged to hold the beacon of justice high. The streets that once echoed with cries for change now resonated with discussions of unity and cooperation. Marcus Ellis had become more than an activist. He was a symbol of what it meant to fight for a better, more equal society, embodying the spirit of resilience that defined a generation determined to rewrite the rules of engagement. And so, while his work was far from finished, the legacy of his passion and perseverance resonated through the hearts of many, rippling through communities like a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of courage and conviction. In every conversation, every policy reform, and every act of solidarity, the message endured. In modern America, the struggle for social justice was not merely an isolated conflict, but an enduring journey toward a future where understanding and acceptance would finally triumph over the shadows of discrimination and despair. People began to share their stories more openly, fostering a climate of healing where transparency and honesty blossomed into tangible action. As the city lights flickered on one crisp winter night, Marcus walked home beneath a sky sprinkled with stars, feeling the weight of both his resolve and the dreams of so many on his shoulders. In his heart, he carried not just the wounds of injustice, but also the hope for a tomorrow where every person would feel seen, heard, and valued, where children of every ethnicity played together without the burden of a past marred by prejudice. His journey was proof that change, though arduous and relentless, was possible, and that every voice, every step taken in truth and solidarity, was a building block for a world reborn from the ashes of inequality. Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. The flicker of hope was igniting a wildfire of change, and he was committed to guiding it into a roaring blaze that would illuminate the pathway to justice for all. The struggle continued, as did the conversations between people from all walks of life, each voice adding a unique thread to the intricate tapestry of change. In neighborhoods once overwhelmed by disparity, new dialogues blossomed with the richness of lived experiences. Community gatherings transformed into sanctuaries of understanding, where laughter and tears mingled, creating fertile ground for unity. In courtrooms and boardrooms, echoing calls for justice prompted a seismic shift. Policies that had long turned a blind eye began to reflect an emerging consensus that justice and compassion must guide every decision, and that it was time to dismantle the barriers that divided rather than unite. Marcus's profound words, etched into the collective consciousness of a nation yearning for fairness, served as both a rallying cry and a reminder that the fight for equality was as much about transforming hearts as it was about reforming systems. These conversations and commitments were not just fleeting moments. They were the seeds of a revolution rooted in dignity and respect for every individual. In the end, Marcus Ellis's story was not merely the tale of a lone activist navigating the turbulent waters of injustice, but rather the vibrant narrative of an entire community rising, emboldened and resolute, to claim their rightful place in modern society. His journey illuminated the path for future generations, showing that, with understanding and acceptance, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal when shared in honesty, and that the collective force of determined individuals has the incredible power to reshape a nation's moral landscape. Each step taken together was a testament to resilience, proving that change is not just possible, it is inevitable when fueled by the collective will of the people. And so, as the night deepened and the city slept, the promise of a more just tomorrow shone brightly in every awakened heart, igniting hope like stars piercing through the darkness. The narrative of Marcus and his community, rich with trials, triumphs, and the unyielding pursuit of dignity, became a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of empathy, unity, and resolve. This story, alive with the echoes of compassion and mutual respect, served not only as a chronicle of past struggles, but as a guiding light for all who wish to carry the torch forward, ensuring that the fight for justice continues to burn brightly in the hearts of many. With the first light of a new dawn breaking over the horizon, a renewed sense of purpose infused the air, making the message unmistakably clear. In every street, in every home, and in every heart, the call for social justice resounded like a powerful anthem. It was a call that reverberated through the streets where ancestors had once marched, echoing from the very roots of history to the vibrant pulse of modern America. This collective yearning urged individuals from all walks of life to step forward, to listen intently to the diverse narratives woven into the fabric of society, and to actively participate in the creation of a future laden with understanding, tolerance, and acceptance. This moment became more than just a rallying cry. It transformed into a symphony of voices united against the silence of oppression, each note amplifying the desire for equity and the right to be heard. As people gathered, their expressions painted a tapestry of determination and hope, signaling a profound awareness that true change arises not just from awareness, but from shared action and unwavering solidarity.